Hello, and welcome to the United States Equestrian Society First Chat with Thomas Weinberg, one of our Global Advisory Committee. I met Thomas more than 16 years ago in Aachen, Germany, at the first annual Trainers Forum organized and held by the Aachen School of Equestrian Arts and Sciences. Thomas and I immediately hit it off based on our mutual love of the sport, our intellectual interest in it, and this transformative experience that we were about to go through together, specifically under the mentorship of Albert Worm, together with Thomas's mom, Helena Stormans, and a host of others that were really dedicated to helping our generation understand the importance of equestrian sport, the responsibility it is to be an equestrian on the top level, and how to navigate the challenges that we all collectively face together. So, just a little bit of personal background on Thomas. His mother, Helena Stormans, has been an incredibly successful rider, trainer, breeder, facility owner, event organizer for many decades. She's from the UK from the beginning and has ridden for the German team in innumerable instances. His father, Peter Weinberg, has also been a part of the international sport for many, many decades. And Thomas himself was able to grow up as a part of the international show jumping horse sport on the top level. He himself has had a really interesting journey through the sport, which we'll talk about in detail today. He has morals and values around the horse-human relationship that you'll hear him talk about today that have guided him to what some might consider alternative practices that allow him to do horse sport in the way that meshes with his values and the protocols that he has become more and more tied to embodying as his life with horses continue. I hope you'll enjoy this commentary that we share. And just a little side note, his uncle is a very famous Iron Maiden rock star. So if you don't care anything about horses, you might want to know about the nephew of Bruce Dickinson. So there you go. Welcome to our wild world of horses and our interesting introspection into our personal lives that they have brought us to. Hope you'll enjoy.
So yeah, basically, obviously, seeing as my parents were both always away at the international shows, and I traveled with them until I was like 3 or 4 years old. But then with kindergarten, and then obviously from 6 with school, it's mandatory, so there was no more traveling with them. So I basically grew up with my grandparents, taking turns between the English and the German ones, because obviously my mum being English, both very English grandparents, and from my father, the German side. I was more with the English ones. And yeah, basically my grandfather, he was a bit of a self-made man in everything, real estate, renovations, then he ran car dealerships, first, second hand, then later also luxury cars. Then they ran a hotel. Basically, he touched into all kind of spheres, but I must say he came from a very, very poor background. They were up in North England, they were a coal mining family. So they were very, very working class, and it was tough times. I mean, there was a big, big family, all living on a very, very small space. So they all had to kind of, all work in the family, work. Yeah, exactly. So kind of he was, he was definitely my mentor because I grew up with him. He was the most influential person in my early days. And he always put a...
if your grandfather was not into the horses and your mom clearly is so into the horses, how did that come about for her? Just for my historical knowledge.
My mother, basically, she came across a riding school but like more like a gymkhana riding school, which was very much actually down what you're doing with the organization. It was very much horsemanship oriented. So it was about taking care of the horse, grooming the horse, understanding the tack, how to tack them up, how to basically really from the roots up. So she got in touch with horses through that, and it was completely her own passion because it was not in my grandparents at all. And also my uncle obviously went down completely a different route, so it was really her thing. And my
I just have
grandfather.
to stop you there and say that there is definitely something at work in the cosmos, because the thing I think that has kept me motivated to want to do something major in the horse world is not really the horse world, but the music world. And that is like neither here nor there, but I think it's so interesting that your family line, which is so successful in so many different things, it's really interesting that those are two main things, kind of rooted in your grandfather, who was clearly a Renaissance man, right?
I mean, my grandfather, he started with a very strong basic education. I think with my mother, with my uncle, with me also, I mean, manners, basic manners, being polite, being on time, working hard, respecting other people. They were non-negotiables with him. And he was very tough also, but really in a good way. I mean, a great mentor, really, truly a great mentor. And he also liked to, with me, challenge me. I mean, always aim me towards things that were actually a little bit, I don't want to say tough in a hard way, but they were challenging. He always put me a little bit out of my depth, and then let me figure it out, but also let me struggle through things. Of course, he was always there, but the safety net came very late. or it felt like never. Mostly, I probably figured out most things before, which looking back now was great, which was great mentorship. He kind of encouraged figure it out, find a way to figure things out. And I think it was a little bit, if you look at his background and his story, he didn't have a higher academic education, etc., but he was amazing at maths. He was amazing at, I mean, architecture. He used to do the plans for the renovations. He kind of knows everything that he ever put his mind to. He just learned it. And I think that's a very important thing that he kind of tried to encourage in me. He said, if you're going to do something, do it right and keep learning. And do it till it's finished. Like basically,
that's pretty much
done.
The rules of life, right?
And exactly, and yeah. I mean, my parents, of course, they are also very much goal oriented, so they also, of course, encourage that. But obviously, in the young years when my parents were always away at the shows, I spent most of my time with them. So it went from, doesn't matter, garden work, renovation work. Anything really, basically anything.
But that's such an interesting point as well, because I think one of the things that has made our Bridge Up Giddy Up program really successful so far is touchstones with multiple generations. That is not a thing I think that's valued enough in sort of the modern world of education. One thing that's definitely not modeled is the allowing people to fail part. So that is a huge, that's a really huge obstacle for young people today, and not just young people, but just people younger than myself. There was kind of a divide in strategy, I think, in child rearing that came, not very long after I was kind of in my adult years, that has really not been helpful to young people, which is safety nets at every corner, combined with packing lots of the same aged kids together and expecting them to somehow be able to figure things out without leadership from multiple generations, not just your teacher or your parents, but the grandparents and other people of different generations that can bring different packets of wisdom. But ultimately, allowing you to fail and figure it out, that's really, I think, a major impediment behind moving things forward in our societies today. And I wonder if you have that same feeling in Europe as I do in the US.
Well, I would say in general, the idea of many educational systems, doesn't matter if it's school or also in the equestrian world, I think we're very much aiming towards getting it done as quick as possible, like getting the qualification, getting the stamp. Basically, if we're educating a horse, how quick can we, this is not my approach, I'm just saying how I observe it. How quickly can we get it to Grand Prix level? As a young rider or a junior or a children, or it doesn't matter, regardless of the age or the level, how quick can we progress? Not how good can we improve the skill? Meaning sometimes lounging around in one depth or in the show jumping in one height can actually give you a lot of depth. I mean, you can win your first 1 meter 20, and you can be so far away from actually understanding what you're doing. And you can ride 100 1 meter 20s. And actually, if you're introspective and you have a good team around you and you're communicating, even the 100th 120, you will still be gaining experience. I mean, I ride today, all depending on the horse, depending on the educational level of the horse, etc. I ride all kinds of ranges of heights. I mean, from 70 centimeters up to Grand Prix. And I'm actually very happy that sometimes I come out of the ring or I've been training at home and I have like a wow moment with the new horse or something like that. And it just kind of reminds me of it's an endless journey. This working on your skill is just a never-ending journey. It should be. It should. I mean, it should be. I think when you come to the point that you think you figured it out, there's something wrong, then you need a new challenge or you need a new perspective, to be honest with you.
Sure.
But
totally.
And I think a lot of the educational programs are, it doesn't matter if it's in school, the A levels or the university. Well, you want to get it in your CV, you want to get the stamp, you want to move on, you want to take that qualification to get a job or to get a whatever. And you kind of think, okay, done that, next thing. And that's where a little bit the basics get lost, especially in the equestrian world. I mean, when I've been very blessed and very lucky and fortunate to have had some really, really amazing mentors in the horse world, but they don't just teach horse world things. I mean, a great mentor is always a great life mentor, in my opinion, because the tips they give you, you can apply them to more or less anything. And they always refer back to the basics, because that's usually on the way to the top when we're chasing results, when we're looking for the next level and the next win and the next this and the next that. We get so focused on the fine tuning details. And then actually sometimes we need to just go 3 steps back and go really to the basics. I mean, flat work, pole work, just to drop your stirrups sometimes. I mean, I don't encourage, like Albert, I don't encourage jumping. There's a lot of things with Albert. Really, I hear his voice almost daily. You know, really.
See apparitions of him sitting in the corner of my indoor.
And I don't want to just idolize Albert, because it would be basically it would be not fair on the other mentors I had, of course, including my parents.
Let's talk about that though, because it's really powerful. Because I think, and same for me, I've had, again, been very lucky to come in contact with masters of equitation in this country, and that's very hard for people younger than me to have access to, because that is really a dying breed, truly. End of story. But Albert was so important to me.
May I just interrupt you there on one thing?
Of course.
I actually think this can be, that what you're saying is very true. And this access, I think we need to take in our educational system in general in the equestrian world, we need to take more advantage of our modern technology.
Totally.
I think the seminars, the master classes, the clinics, I think they should be recorded. I think they should be filmed. For example, I loved watching the the seminar, the clinic of Hendrik van Eckermann. It's on Clip My Horse. I love that. I watched it. It was there were beginner riders. It was a mixed group. There were a few insecure people. They were jumping a meter 10. Some of the riders were very weak. Some of the misunderstandings between rider and horse were very big. And I think it's important to not be embarrassed or ashamed to show that level, because there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Oh, not at all.
Me as a trainer, how he also dealt with the situation was amazing. He addressed the horse, he addressed the rider, he got on the horse, he said what he was doing. I mean, that was really a masterpiece of mentorship and training. And I think these kind of role model trainers that have managed to reach such a level, I think if we could film that more and put it on some kind of a platform, doesn't matter, YouTube or Clip My Horse, there's so many platforms now, it will not just help other riders to learn passively, it will also help other coaches how to deal with it. And also just be open about it, to not feel ashamed, because I see that often at shows when sometimes some coach has some really beginner level rider, or they have a new horse and it's really, really not going. No problem. We've all been there. We've all been there. And I think it just needs to be kind of the environment should be a little bit more open and more supportive, not necessarily pointing fingers and saying, oh my God, like, what the hell are you doing? You know, because sometimes it can be a bit like that.
Oh, no, for sure. And I think that that's really important too, that one of the things that you hit on there is one thing that we're really proud about with our upcoming competitions is that the transparency will be there. And that's not only to ensure the best of everyone, right? If you're being watched, you do a really good job. It's like I always say, it's like if you ride for one of your favorite mentors, you know that that's the best that you ride in your life, because now you're not just riding for you, but you're also riding to make them proud. And that's a thing that, of course, we make mistakes, and of course there's embarrassing moments, but in this age of glossy, glitzy, everybody has a perfect Instagram page, actually it feels to me like the pages and the influencers that are getting really a lot of following are those that are trying to make it more transparent and trying to bring glory to the journey. And that's something that we're really hopeful will be, because again, in our competition series, it's really supposed to be geared towards riding schools and showcasing the progress. And then on top of that, bringing top people from around the world to be guest judges as well as helpers, right? So on our Fridays, it's going to be like mini clinics, but very unstructured, if you will, where our international expert stands in the arena with the coaches and the riders that will be participating on the weekend to just give some helpful hints. You know, and sometimes I think that's where people might get the most help, because oftentimes when you take your students to a clinic with a master, let's say, the master runs the whole thing and the student responds to them perhaps differently than they might their regular coach for a myriad of reasons. But sometimes it's just because of the structure of the event. It's set up to be successful. So to your point about helping coaches, how nice would it be to have a coach with the student that they work with regularly, doing their thing, knowing they're being watched, so they're putting their best foot forward, and then having an international role model master give them friendly support in the moment? Couldn't that be a really fun thing? Because oftentimes I think as coaches, we can feel very protective and very defensive of things that we don't feel we do as well as someone else. So what? We're all there. We all have things we don't do as well as other people. So let's bring in people that have vast experience, that want to be helpful. They really want to pass the baton to the next generation, and let them support people right where they are. I think that that's going to be a really interesting thing to be able to showcase through technology. What do you think about that?
I think it's a very interesting approach. I think it can be successful. I think it, of course, It requires an openness, as you said, from the coaches, because there is, of course, a lot of protectivity, etc. There's a lot of anxiety about possibly showing imperfections, or it's normal. It is a very competitive industry, and there's a lot of sharks around in the sea trying to poach clients, etc. So I think it needs to be handled in a sensitive, protective way to encourage first of all, encourage the teachers, basically the trainers, to be open for it. I think what could be a way of doing that is, for example, even if it wasn't live one-to-one, if it would be just recorded and sent into a platform, and it could be like a form of advice afterwards, so that it basically doesn't undermine the authority of the actual local trainer. So the local trainer can get the feedback from whoever in the background is let's say the maybe more experienced supervisor. So it's advice being passed on to the local trainer, and then the trainer can put it in his own words to bring the message across. Because I think it's a fine line, of course, like we said, always, of undermining the authority and the credibility of the local trainer. So I think generally the idea, in an idealistic world, it would be incredible to be straightforward, but I think it has to be adapted to the reality and the practice. So yeah, if there's a training, record it, send it to a supervisor, and just say, listen, what do you think? What would you have done differently? Do you have any input? Do you have any, because we're encouraging the trainers to be open for positive feedback, and I think it's a very good thing.
Well, and one of the things that, because I've been in conversation on sort of a national level with fellow riding instructors for coming up on 5 years now, and number one, far and away, the greatest concern, or the way that most people identify, is as an imposter. And that is really sad. I know that because I've felt that same way, especially being an American, having access to just what has historically been available to us, and then being married to a European from a very different, very structured riding school, sort of national riding school type background. It is so important that we find ways to blend whatever skills and experience people have in a way that really supports the fact that they are doing this at all. Because as you know, so many of us have been tempted to get out of the industry altogether. So many of us have had incredible financial burdens because of trying to hold on to this dream of either or both, trying to do the sport for ourselves or trying to pass that love and passion on to another generation. It's a really hard world that we're in. Well, and we have to support each other in it.
I agree totally. I mean, it's first of all, it's a very, very expensive sport. And referring to what we were saying earlier, the reason why I decided a little bit to diversify was I wanted to do the sport, and I wanted to remain doing the sport, but on my own terms, which means obviously through all the mentors that I've learned from, and also my own interpretation of horsemanship, of the approach towards the things. Sometimes with a horse, things take longer that maybe a sponsor, an owner with commercial backgrounds and demands and wishes would like. So then you get to the dilemma. Do you do what has to be done to get the result and sacrifice the welfare of the horse, or your own morals, your own ideas, your own values? And that was always for me a tough one. It's why I said, listen, to finance yourself, to finance your own equestrian sport through the equestrian sport means you have to work with people that are very much also generally trying to go for results as quick as possible, as high as possible, a very high profit turnover. So you're not working actually with sponsors, you're working with investors. We have to say they call themselves sponsors. They are usually people buying horses or shares in horses, positioning them with skilled riders. But the goal is profit. I mean, we don't have to hide it. The goal is profit. And time is money, because running horses, running stables, etc., it's costs. So sometimes time gets a little bit tight, so we have to cut corners. And I always said, I kind of don't really feel super comfortable with that. So I wanted to always be independent. I kept my mentoring, I kept my clinics, I kept my training, etc. Because there seems to be, I mean, your example is the best example. There seems to be a very, very big group in this community. I was very happy actually to see that is not just focused on the, I want to win next week, no matter how. It doesn't matter what we do, and it doesn't matter if I ride well or bad, or it doesn't matter. I just want to win, have an Instagram photo and say I'm the best. No, there's actually people that are interested in the craft and in the skill and in the horsemanship, etc. So I managed to keep my line in the education, which is very nice. I didn't go mainstream. I went my stream, and people joined that. But in the other part of the industry, like I said, it just the numbers wouldn't work out, and it's why I went into other businesses, like I said, with the real estate, the short-term rentals, the fintech, the crypto. Like basically the last years, I went into other businesses because I understood more or less what kind of a budget I will need to be able to do the sport without financial pressure, and to do it inside the sport and keep your own idealistic line. For me, I just did the math and I thought it's not going to work.
For sure. On that note, it would seem that you have quite an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that in some ways that's really a requirement of a successful equestrian that wishes to have some independence in the sport. Would you agree with that? And do you think that
Absolutely.
these things are tied together?
I mean, money is one thing is for sure. In this sport, no matter what level, it is an expensive sport. Even on the beginning level, having a horse, keeping a horse, having a trainer, the farrier, the vet, the competitions, no matter on what scale you're going to do it, it is an expensive sport. And the higher you go, the higher the expenses go. So you need to always think, how are you going to finance it? So money is actually independence. Money buys you time, money buys you independence, money buys you options of people to work with, etc. So obviously growing up in a dealing stable background from very young age, surrounded by very commercial people in the horse industry, I obviously know how to do it. I've done it. I mean, or at least for 15 years of my life, I was my only business was horses, but kind of I still felt there needed to be more, and the more I could do outside of the horses, the more I could do the horses in the way that I felt was actually right. As I said, there's always the alternative, working with sponsors, but sponsors are usually also profit oriented. They are not real. I mean, the sponsors that you are now building, because you're doing it a different way. I mean, usually in the horse world, it's like this. If you're looking for a sponsor, you start pitching them, how much recognition are you going to get in the media? How much recognition are you going to get through, I'm going to be winning X, Y, Z. Then you're going to buy a horse. It's going to win with me X, Y, Z. Then it will increase in value. Then we will sell it. You will make profit. You can reinvest. And then we just keep this circle going. And then, you'll end up with a ton of money and a ton of recognition. That is the pitch that is usually sold to sponsors and investors within the circuit. I like very much your approach. You are actually looking for people that are investing in education, and then kind of the results, they come as a side effect, which gives much more emphasis on the actual learning of the skill, learning of the craft, and the actual mastery of equestrianism, of horsemanship itself, which is very, very nice. and it gives more time to develop. So it'll be very interesting where your route is going. That's why when you asked me if I would be on your global advisory board, I said, oh, I need to ask you a lot of questions first, because I didn't want to get caught up again in one of these commercial industrial chains, because I've been part of it for many times in many ways. And then I like your approach. It was very different, and I could fully support that with my values.
I love it. And I think what's so interesting about what you're saying now is that investment in education, that investment doesn't stop just within the equestrian sector, does it? Those skills are able to be transferred into all fields for
absolutely.
young people.
I mean, the thing is, because we discussed once on the phone the horsemanship. When you asked me in my terms what is horsemanship, and I said, how long should the answer be? I can tell you a book
many
if you
pages.
want. Yeah. So I mean, in the end, the horsemanship, to answer your question with that, the horsemanship initially, in my opinion, if we want to keep it in simple words for everybody to understand, it's a friendship between a human and a horse. And it is an eye-to-eye level where we respect the horse as a person, as another individual, with its emotions, with its needs, with its fears, with its everything. And to do that, we as a human, first of all, because it's a friendship, and it's a true friendship, because the horse doesn't understand if we are a multimillionaire kid, or if we're a groom, or if we're an assistant rider. The horse judges on actions, not words. The horse looks at us and says, okay, how does he treat me? According to that, I will trust him, like him, he will be my friend or not. But in able to create this friendship between the human and the horse, first of all, we need to learn the language of our partner, which is the horse. Because with a human interaction, I mean, yes, we have words. With the horses, we actually need to learn the language of the horse. We need to understand its emotions. We need to understand when it's happy, when it's afraid, when it's stressed, etc. And then, of course, learning all the biology and all the history about it just gives us more layers and more depth, etc. And it's a never-ending story. But so to answer the question, the horsemanship teaches education to people. It teaches empathy. It teaches patience. It teaches respect. It teaches understanding, acceptance, and it also teaches openness towards other cultures, towards other languages, towards other races. I mean, generally, it's just teaching good manners and respect and caring for the horse. So I think it's you can very much compare this education and transfer it to other parts. And I believe a true horseman with real horsemanship values will also manage to get along in life anywhere you put them, anywhere, in any culture you drop them, in any country you drop them. They will, first of all, be polite, be humble. They will watch, they will communicate, they will take their time to understand the other person before barging in and setting demands. And, it's my opinion. So I think a real horseman is you can translate it to like being a gentleman. So I do believe horsemanship will really, teach human values.
Can I ask a bit of a controversial question now?
Of course.
So if we could agree that these personal development benefits are not only possible, they're inevitable when you are learning true horsemanship. Do you think that there are potentially negative effects of humans working through horses in a way that does not follow those parameters? Can the opposite be true?
That's a very good question, and it's a little bit of a complex question. I would like to say on a neutral, I have to put it in a little bit of a theoretical, metaphorical way because it's
Sure.
such a complex question. I think as long as we are talking about humans working with horses without exterior pressures, demands, etc., I see nothing negative in humans with horses. We're interacting with a very sensitive species. I always say horses are people. For me, horses are people. But okay,
Totally.
I've grown up with them. But for me, the horses are people. Just often more honest. So because they are like their emotions are just what they are, and so I don't see any negatives in that. Where I do see the risks, and that refers back to me also deciding I would like to make money outside of the horses to be able to do horses how I feel is right, is we humans are usually an instrument for someone, for something. If we're an employed rider for young horses, for Grand Prix horses, or if we ride for sponsors, investors, there is a task that we are required to do, and we are judged on that. And the same with the grooms, the same with the drivers, etc., which means we don't work for the horse, we work for people. And we have this saying in Germany, I'm sure in England it's the same. The one who pays also decides which music is played. So can there be negatives?
Could you say that in German, please?
Yes,
I just
yes.
want to hear how it sounds in German.
Der zahlt, bestimmt auch, welche Musik gespielt wird. So it's like the one who puts the change in the jukebox also decides the song. And so yeah, in that aspect, if you're working for, well, a very industrial, stable, or also to be very honest, I don't even want to always put it on the greed, because also the industry has really changed in the last years. The prices, the costs of things have just gone astronomical. And I see it especially, I mean, here in Germany and in Europe at the base. Unfortunately, who really suffers is the base. It's the breeders, it's the young horse riders and developers, it's the riding schools, it's the local shows where the kids go. It's becoming so expensive and it's becoming so difficult to attain that also the financial pressure, the burden of the financial pressure brings a lot of stress and frustration to people, and it puts pressure on them. So I don't only want to now blame on the big, rich capitalists making millions in the big, not at all. Often these stables still have a much higher care for the horses and a much higher level of professionalism and horsemanship. Of course, it's profit oriented, but still, it doesn't matter. It arrives with the horse. The horses have nice, well-managed lives. But especially at the base, where really the people are struggling financially, they start cutting corners on the horse care. They start having the horses shod in longer intervals. So the horses kind of for 2 weeks or 3 weeks are having
we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, cutting corners on basically on the costs of the horse. So yeah, and where do we come back to? Financing. It comes back to the financing thing. So I don't really have the solution for it. I mean, your approach is lovely. I really like that, getting funding through education and getting funding from education to give back to the horse society. It's a fantastic approach, because especially at the entry level and the mid level, for sure, the circle doesn't close.
For sure. Can I ask you just sort of a perspective from where you sit in your part of the world, and being very involved in the sport and having been for many, many decades? Do you have any insight to share with the rest of us that don't get to see that as much, about where you think sport is headed in the next few decades? Like, where do you imagine we will be in 20 years from now?
Wow. It's going to be a very tough one. It's going to be one that now my answer is going to be probably a little bit polarizing and maybe not liked by many, but I'm just going to say what I think. I think as the industry has formed how it's formed, people get paid for results, meaning it is already a very wealthy person's sport. And I'll refer to Albert actually when he said, the good riders are not really getting the chances. It's the rich people that are getting the chances because they just buy the better horses, they buy into shows, they buy the best trainers, etc. I mean, I see a lot of amazing trainers, riders, horsemen, stepping down from the sport themselves. And I mean, I meet them in the warm-up arenas, coaching people jumping 1 meter to 1.30 m, because it pays better than winning Grand Prix themselves. So where do I see the horse sport going? I see the horse sport very much going in that direction. I think we're following in Europe the American market. I think the American market is a little bit further progressed in that, actually, which I absolutely have nothing against wealthy people enjoying the sport. We all live from it. But what I do see as a little bit of a risk is when the really, really good riders don't get the chance anymore to ride at all, we're going to have a decline of sport, of top sport, and we're going to have a decline of media interest, and we're going to have a decline of public interest. And with that, we're going to have even less interest for corporate sponsorship, for commercial sponsorship, etc. So which means we're going to more and more develop into a private rich people's niche, which means it's going to end up being a private club of wealthy people. And which is also, again, not a problem, but where is the sport going to go? Who is going to, at some point, who is going to be interested in breeding a young horse when we all know a breeder, first of all, 4 years, they just take care of the horse. Then they need an affordable solution for someone, a real horseman, to teach their horse something for another 2-3 years. And the costs have already really increased then. Then we need those horses. Sometimes the young horse riders, they're very good at that, but they're not good at riding higher competitions. So then they need to go on to the next level, etc. And the rich end user client needs a fully automated, fully educated horse, which is so far from where it comes from. There's years and years and years of skilled education going into that to have the ready horse that these people with sometimes very, very limited skills, which is not a problem. The problem is that they didn't put the years in that these other specialists did. They want to ride 1.20 m and 1.30 m after sometimes only a few years of riding. I think I was riding for, I don't know, 5 or 10 years before I jumped over a meter. So it means the hours that you put in. They want to skip the hours. They want to skip the work.
You can't be an expert with less than 10,000 hours.
Exactly.
And so I guess another question, again, sort of welfare and the welfare of the sport, in my opinion, go hand in hand. And I think that that's something that a friend of mine has a really, really good podcast that I want you to make sure that you listen to, because there's so much breadth of covering all this. Welfare, in my mind, does not just mean warm and fuzzy, like stuff, like how I think that an animal activist probably views it. In my mind, welfare is being able to create and maintain long-term relationships between horses and humans, because to your point, that's a lot of years and it's a lot of financial investment to get one of these automated horses carrying a definitely, by definition, not expert horseman around classes where it does not matter how good the horse is. If you make a lot of mistakes at 1:30, you take every horse's heart away, especially the ones that don't want to touch poles. So could it also be said that very, very good horses, when they enter into this circle, this cycle of how the sport has developed, do those horses continue to carry on for years and years, how they would with the experts? I mean, there's There's lots of Grand Prix show jumping riders that have had partners with top horses for long periods of time where they get better.
Yeah, I'll say it depends who is the coach in the background.
Okay.
Because that's where the expertise comes. Really, it's very important. I see it sometimes with a few of the students that I've managed over the last years. I need to anticipate when is the time before the trust is lost that I need to get on the horse, and I need to, of course, my clients, they trust in me, they know me as a rider, as everything. But I think the position of some riding mentors should be strengthened at this point, because they know when we've gone into a ring and the horse has had 2 or 3 bad distances amiss, maybe they saved the first time, maybe they had a crash the second time, the third time, maybe they're holding their breath. That's already really, really, really the last call, when the trainer has to say, listen, next week, I think it's a good idea on Wednesday or Thursday, I jump the horse at home. I feel, how is the horse feeling? If he's not confident next weekend, I don't think it's a good idea. You jump, maybe I jump it a couple of times, or I'll take the horse to the show, jump it a small round, and I will feel when your horse has digested the hit it just took. They don't do it on purpose, but
of course not.
The horse needs to, I always call it the bank account. I always call it basically the good heart bank account. A good rider increases deposits, increases the value of that bank account. Bad riding decreases it, and you're never allowed to let that bank account run too low, because often once you've gone bust, it's a long way back if the horse ever recovers from it emotionally, mentally.
Of course.
But saying what you were saying earlier was a very nice aspect when you said it's not all just lovey-dovey. Like for me, when I see like well, I say again, Hendrik van Eckermann or Steve Gaddar, or we have some really lovely riders at the moment on the top level, and I adore watching them, really. And you know, when they've just finished a 160 round, rider and the horse has been at the limit and beyond, but the bond is there, the passion is there, both are so connected, and then they go through the finish and they pat the horse, and the horse is playing with emotion. So they are athletes. They love also feeling the boundaries, but they also know they're in good hands. So, and that is where the horsemanship again comes in. We need to let our students grow. And yes, we need to put them sometimes, because we only grow with increasing slowly the level we're riding at. But we need to be very careful when it's also the moment to take a step back, and also to say, listen, we as riders, as riding trainers, we need to get on, just regain the trust, etc. I think it's a very it needs a lot of experience, and it needs really someone to also just say, listen, because that's the next thing about the protectiveness. So we've sold maybe a very nice, very expensive horse, and then after 3 disastrous rounds, we have to say, listen, I need to get on it once. And then it's a good, oh, why? Is the horse not good enough? And then it's about communication. Then we need to be able to say, yes, the horse is good. Everything is good. It's communication. It's again, education, horsemanship, yes, but the horse just got confused due to your riding mistakes, which is normal. You're a beginner. I would like to give the confidence back into the horse, so that when you come back to that situation, the horse will be happy to do it again for you. I think it's very important that we keep that.
It's very important. And that really goes to the point about what a journey of personal development horse sport is for every single person involved in it. And that openness is the key, because I think one of the things that I've recognized in my journey over the years for trying to increase accessibility, so that there are more people in the sport, and there are more people actively engaged in promoting the things that we're talking about as being very important. It's about people allowing their authenticity and their vulnerability to be seen. And that is not, as much as we talk about privilege and wealth, I think it's really important to say that just because folks might have a lot in the bank account or might have a lot of powerful sway in the social world, that doesn't mean that their lives are easy. And that doesn't
Absolutely.
mean that they have a greater threshold of joy than any of the rest of us.
I
And I
agree.
think it really shows exactly what you're talking about, that horses are equalizers.
They are.
And if, as long as we can ensure that there is messaging out there that says that we understand this, and a world without horse sport is potentially a worse world to live in, this is what we all have to find ways to join, in lockstep together, to make sure that this messaging is known, because I don't think that that's how it's necessarily portrayed in media. It's
Yes.
not easy for anyone to do this.
Well, I think the platform that you're creating is actually, once again, very, very nice, because it's looking at the whole equestrian world and the horsemanship from a different perspective, and it's putting that in the center above, let's say, the short-term results on paper, because on the paper you can go through a result list and you can see, it doesn't say how good was the rider, how good was the horse, how well is the rider taking care of the horse, what is his skills, how good is the horse. Maybe it's a 150 horse, just won a 1 meter class, so what is actually the value of that result? Zero. Nobody cares. It's a first place, and you're putting the emphasis on doing the skill well. I mean, I think if we want to keep the sport alive as a sport, as what it began with, I mean, it's the connection between a human and a horse, which is kind of what it's all based on. To make the sport continue in this horsemanship way, we need to make the horsemanship sexy again, not
Totally.
just the result, not just the
Totally.
result on the result list. Everybody's putting emphasis on the result. Nobody cares how we got there, how good was the rider, how good was the horse. It all doesn't matter. Everybody just looks at the result lists, and they refer to that as the quality, and that's just wrong.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
wrong. So I like your approach on that. And going back to and going back to what you said earlier, with it's complicated to show vulnerability, etc. And it is a very character building thing to come to the point of failing and not anymore being afraid to admit you're failing, and that failing is a part of the process. I mean, the most courageous thing, in my opinion, anybody can do is look in the mirror and see and speak the truth to yourself. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, and the sport opens this door multiple times on a daily basis, and we kind of find excuses and ways around it, and blaming him and blaming that and blaming the horse and blaming the course and and this and that and etc. And if we actually dig deep and have the courage to be honest with ourselves, we'll always find a stone unturned. We'll always find, and I'm not saying it in a negative way, not nagging, not putting yourself down, just saying, maybe if I work on X, Y, Z, it'll improve. That's it.
Totally. And but it really comes down to, I think, encouraging people to build their self-worth, not based on the results, but based on this journey. And so the goal is to make that sexy again, have little press conferences and encourage people, young people, older people, it doesn't matter, to speak to what went well and speak to what they really hope they'll do better the next time. Like, we need platforms for that.
That's why I said, I loved you. I saw you posted the interview of Laura Kraut, who is a fantastic horseman and rider and trainer and everything. And when she was saying, Exactly. And she was saying how she enjoys the education of a young horse just as much as the win of a Grand Prix. The same with Hendrik van Eckermann's clinic, where really things went really terribly wrong, and it didn't matter. It was part of the process. It was part of the game. It was good. I think let's call it the momentary, let's call it narrative or focus, or what is promoted as being sexy or being Instagram life or whatever you want to call it, is results, results, results. And I think the key to making it all very good, I don't want to say make it good again, I want to say in general, just keeping it good, is changing a little bit the narrative there, and also showing the other aspects of what is part of the journey. As you said, what's really nice, and I think it should be promoted more, is on television also, when they broadcast the big shows. Usually when you see the top riders, when you ask them to do a video analysis, that's lovely, because there you see how much attention to detail they put. And the top guy, I mean, Ludger Beerbaum, he's very analytical and he's very self-critical, very. He will go through from the first to the last, and he will say, there I lost a bit of time, and there I was a bit far, I was a bit deep, I was this, I was that, etc. And I think this will encourage also on all the levels below people to be open about their imperfections. But totally. I think it has to be promoted more. Because and everybody likes to show, in a way. Exactly, they like to show the win. It's spectacular with the slow motion and a cheer and the heroic act and everything. But speak to the riders, ask them how they found their round. And on the top level, you will hear often very humble, very self-critical, in a very positive way, very productive way. And I think that's what the broader audience needs to hear more, to get used to that. So that when they come out of the ring, they are not worried to say, "Whoa, on number 2, my God, I was so deep. I don't know how my horse made that. He saved me." Right. It's not a problem.
Exactly.
It's not a problem.
Right. Totally. So to that point, let's end with this. I would like for you to tell us, you're going to have to dig deep into your well of all of the experiences you've had in your whole life, getting to really live inside top sport for a very, very massive part, your whole life, right? Your whole entire life. You know, top horse people on a level that the media cannot possibly promote them, right? You know them as people that, you sit around the table and have a meal with, or you go to the pub and have a pint with, or you help each other figure out about a horse deal that didn't go, whatever. Could you classify the top horse people that you have known in your life? Can you give us a few characteristics that they share, which is something that we need to make sure that our future with horses is producing more people like that, right? That's the goal.
Yeah. What they all, if they've been at the top of the sport for a while, they have all endured years and years of tough life. Sacrifice, hard work, daily, from morning till night. So they are.
Oh, you mean it's not sexy and just glamorous sitting in the VIP tent all the time? Is that what you're saying, Thomas?
That is the small 1% that maybe gets shown. That's what I mean. That's what gets shown on the TV, etc. No, these guys and women have gone through years of pain, not pain in a bad way, adversity, challenge, finding a way, how to get the horses, how to get the funding, how to produce the horses, how to deal with difficult owners, sponsors, how to make the impossible possible. These people are all very, very resilient. They are all very hardworking. They are not always admitting it, but they are very self-critical because they needed to go beyond again and again and again. And they needed to outgrow themselves again and again and again. So these people On the high level that have been there for many years, I would say you take them out, you put them into any other industry, they will excel probably just due to toughness, work ethic, resilience, and introspection. Of course, they'll need to learn whatever that business or industry needs you need for the skills, but the mindset is there. And they can deal with pressure. Because,
do you think
because the pressure is always there, because I'll go back to the point, we rarely do it for ourselves. We're usually doing it for other people. And they have demands, and we have to deal with them.
Absolutely. Do you think that there is a common thread in why the people that have managed to stay in and stay on a top level, is it only because of the demands, or is it because of some kind of indescribable thing that makes them want to do horses? Like, would they be as happy doing something else, even if it was easier?
I don't know. I think it depends on the personality, to be honest with you. We see in the industry, I don't want to idolize it, because some people for sure, some people are just made just for horses all their life. Some people are so adaptable that they'll venture into other things. I mean, again, we can say Ludger Beerbaum, he's into private equity, and he's into real estate, and he's into so many other things. There's examples for both. But I think for sure, as we say, we come back down to adaptability, because around the horses, this is again making a small loop back to the horsemanship and back to the friendship with the horse. Every horse is individual, every single one. There is no roadmap in any book that will give you the right approach to your next horse. You need to figure it out every time. So what does it teach us? It teaches us adaptability. And usually the easiest variable to change, because changing the horse, there's a limited amount you can change every horse. The person, the one who's the most, exactly, the one that we can be the most flexible with is ourselves, because we can push ourselves and bend ourselves as much as we think we can. With the horses, we come to some limit, and sometimes we don't want to change the horse. Sometimes the horse has so great aspects that we just want to support them. So we work around the horse. We make us fit to the horse.
Totally. 100%. I love that perspective. That's so good. Thank you, Thomas. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been very nice talking to you.
I knew it would be magical. Yes.
Super.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.